So the first thing we want to do is actually create a package to place our Pojo class. So I'll just move down here into my, and I'll simply just do a right click here and say create new package. And the name that I'll give for the package, I'll call it .entity. So this is where we'll put our actual Pojo class. All right, so now here, step one, I need to actually create my Java Pojo class. I'm going to create a new class here. And this is for our Pojo called student. So it's just a regular, plain old Java object, or just a regular Java class. All right, and I'll go ahead and expand the window here for a second. And basically what I'm going to do here is just define some fields here. So I'll define a field for first name and last name. Alrighty, so that's taken care of. I'll just go ahead and define a constructor. So I'll just actually write out the first one here, the no argument constructor. And then for the other constructor, I'll actually have it generate this for me. And just make sure that both of them are selected here for first name and last name. All right, so there we go. So we have this constructor for first name and last name. Okay, good. Now, the next thing we need to do is simply generate the getters and setters for these fields. And then just make sure that these two are selected for first name and last name. So I'll move down to this REST package, and I'll create a new class for our REST controller. And the name that I'll give for this controller, I'll call it Student REST Controller. Alright, I'll just expand the window here for a second. So since I'm building a REST controller, I'll use that Spring annotation at REST controller. And I also set up the base request mapping here. I'll call it /API. Here's the basic layout here for our student REST controller. So we have the annotations up top for the at REST controller and at request mapping. Now, just a quick comment here that I'll write in the code here. I need to define an endpoint for /students. So this will be for a GET request, and basically what we'll do is we'll return a list of all of the students that we have. All right, so we can use the same process that we saw earlier with the Hello World example. We simply define a GET mapping. So here I'll give /students. I'll say public list student because we're going to return a list of students, right? Call the method getStudents. And just for now, just say return null. Kind of stretch out here at the bottom, give myself some white space, room to work with. So what we're going to do is create some sample students in this method that will return back to the calling program. And for now, we'll just hard code it. We'll get into all the database stuff later, so don't worry. We'll do all the full database CRUD stuff in some following videos. For now, let's just kind of keep it simple just to get things up and running. So I'll just create a new array list right here. It's empty at the moment for students, and we'll actually populate it with some student objects. And then I'll just add a new student. So I'll say the students.add. I create a new student. Use that constructor that we created in the previous example here. So new student, Purnima Patel. So that is our first student. And now it's just more of the same, right? So let's just go ahead and copy this line and paste it a couple of times, and we'll just change the student name. Alrighty, so I have 3 students here. Let me just update the names here. So Mario Rossi. And then Mary Smith. So I'll just kind of fix up the returns here. So return the students as opposed to null, as we have a new object that we just created. All right, so this looks good. So those are the 3 students that we've just added for this demo. Alrighty, so that's the endpoint here. And so we can actually access this endpoint by going to /API/students. And remember, Spring will make use of JSON in the background. It'll take those POJOs and convert them to JSON, and it'll go back to the client or calling program. So this is good for the first cut. There's some minor items here and there, but don't worry, we'll actually refactor this code in some later videos. But at least this is enough to get us started. Okay, so we have our coding completed. Let's go ahead and test this out, and let's run it and see how it works out. Alrighty, so it's up and running. So remember, we have to go into the URL here and do /API/students to access that new endpoint that we just created. And then, booyah! I love it. This is great. Good. So this is some good JSON. So we have our 3 students, Purnima, Mario, and Mary. Remember how Spring REST will actually take your actual Pojo objects and convert those Pojo objects to JSON and pass it back. And it makes use of the Jackson project in the background for handling that conversion. So we saw how Jackson worked in some of our previous videos. So we're good to go there. So let's go ahead and copy this URL from the browser here, and then we'll move over to Postman and test it there. All right, so in Postman, click the little plus here to get us a new tab. And then in the actual URL section here, just paste in that URL that we copied previously. And then we just hit the blue send button. And then, oh yeah, I love it. So there we go. So let me kind of scroll down a bit over here. And here are our 3 students, Purnima, Mario, and Mary.